Hi, I'm going to share my sermon for the day. The first reading is from Romans 8:12-25, and the second one is from Matthew 13:24-30 and 36-43. But you could read straight through. I'm going to talk a little bit about the bits in between too. It's actually worth having a read of the whole of chapter 13 because we're reading it for a few weeks and there's all these connections and there's this theme that weaves its way through of understanding and not understanding. Jesus is teaching using riddles, a bit like what Confucius and the Buddha did with their followers. They would tell riddles that confound the disciple so that the disciple has to take time considering the riddle, and through reflection, they discover insight. Jesus has told a parable about a farmer who plants seeds in the field, and many of them struggle to grow, but the ones that grow well produce lots more seeds to feed people and to grow more in the next harvest. Then we have another story about a farmer planting seeds, but the farmer has an enemy who also plants weeds in the field at night. But he tells the workers not to try and pull out the weeds. I bet the workers would have been happy that they didn't have to do all that weeding. But he says, don't pull them out because you're going to pull out everything. Let them grow together and separate them at harvest time. Then he tells another one about a farmer planting one mustard seed in his field, even though mustard attracts pests like birds and rats that will eat the crops. Then Jesus tells one about a baker who is making bread out of flour that has been made from the grain that's been grown in these fields. And she's using so much flour, it's probably enough to make more than 100 loaves of bread. And she's mixing yeast into the dough so that it spreads all the way through the dough and it can't be separated, just like the weeds and the wheat can't be separated. And the yeast makes the bread expand. There's so many loaves and they're all expanding. What is she going to do with all of this bread? How many people will this bread feed? The thing about Jesus' parables or riddles is that they challenge us to think differently by giving us something strange or mysterious. Often when Jesus tells them, he says, this is what the kingdom of God is like, or this is what God's new society is like. They challenge us to reconsider the world, but they lose their power a lot when they're explained, especially if each element in the riddle is connected to a specific thing. Normally they're not explained. Jesus says, let anyone who has ears listen. He says that the ones who understand will get more understanding, but the ones who don't understand will even have what they do understand taken away from them. I wonder, is this another parable, another riddle? It certainly has me scratching my head. The problem is the 12 disciples, the group of men who Jesus had picked to spend extra time with, giving them extra attention, they don't understand. They're often asking Jesus, can you explain this to us? Why do you speak in parables? They seem to be the ones who don't understand. I wonder if they need extra help, unlike all the others in the crowd. In the story of the weeds, the farmer says, don't pull out the weeds. You're going to disturb everything if you do that. Let them grow together. When we look at our society and see difference, when we look at our neighbourhood and see conflict between different groups, it can be easy to think, wouldn't it be nice if we were all the same? Wouldn't it be nice if we could go back to a time when we imagine that everyone got along and that there wasn't any multiculturalism or difference? Wouldn't everything just go more smoothly? In times of conflict, there will always be people saying, we just need to pull out those ones who are growing the wrong way. But if we follow these voices, we're going to be pulling out, uprooting God's creatures when we think that we're uprooting weeds. If we think that there's something wrong growing in the garden, we should let the gardener worry about that. We might find that that plant has a good purpose and that we would have harmed a wondrous creature of God. There are other elements in the story which I don't think reflect the good news and the Christian hope of restoration, particularly in the explanation that Jesus gives to the 12. This is another thing that has me scratching my head, confounded. This is the problem that I see comes up when we try to explain the parables and connect each detail to a particular thing. Because we Christians don't actually believe that every person is already fated to be either good or to be evil. But the explanation here, it would give that impression. It says that some of the seeds were planted by the evil one and that they're not children of God. We know that God sees all of us as children and offers redemption to us all. We've been sinful, but we've been saved by Christ and we're called to change our lives. In the section that we've looked at from the book of Romans, it says that God has adopted us into God's family. So we weren't originally part of God's family, but we are now. It's not a thing where we were fated to be one or the other. God is at work restoring all things. Creation is longing for the appearance of God's children. People who we might think were weeds planted by the enemy are God's children, and we shouldn't be interfering with them. Let's be patient with our neighbours, happy to grow together and see what fruit grows in our lives. Let's ask God's Spirit to grow in us the things that reflect our Creator's character. Let's make sure that we're open to the amazing things that God may be doing in the world around us. And let's make sure that our understanding doesn't close our hearts to what God is doing.